Welcome back to the Lords of Lore podcast. I'm Matt. I'm joined today by
Ochi.
Ochi. Welcome back to the show. Happy to have you.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here.
And in typical Black people fashion, we are recording this Black History Month episode way fucking late, but that's all right. So yeah, this is our top 5 Black characters, fantasy, sci-fi, and anything that can fit in that gambit. So yeah, we're going to present our own independent lists, but then we're going to make a show's definitive top 10 list between the two of us. So if I say something so we'll both reveal our lists one by one. So I'll start with my 5, you do your 5, then I'll do my 4, just like that. But if one is not your 4, if it's in a position higher, just say Portal, and we're going to table that discussion for a later time when it comes up higher on whoever's respective list. If we have any crossover, I'm thinking we might not. And we were talking a little bit off camera here. This was a tough list to compile, and it just goes to show that, we don't have enough representation happening in these sort of genre mediums. And we're getting more of it, so it's getting better, but it's not where it needs to be. Especially we talk about things like fantasy, like we focus on this podcast. It was so tough to find names. Yeah, I know I have my favorites, but definitive lists of these things should exist. But yeah, what was your experience in trying to find entries for this list?
I'm gonna be honest. So yeah, as you said, it was difficult. And it was not finding a handful was a stretch, but I do not think I could find 20. If you gave me all the time in the world, that'd be one of those tasks that might take a year plus. but no, in all seriousness, finding thinking of it was really hard. And then you have to think about what roles were these people actually given, or what was their place in the plot, and then you find a reoccurring theme. You see what's going on a little bit with that.
We're never the lead, always the sidekick type thing. Yeah. So yeah, well, let's just get straight into it. Since you're the guest, I'll allow you to go first. So who's your number 5?
Number 5, I'm gonna go with Idris Elba in Prometheus.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah, and it's honestly because it's a big IP. I don't know. I don't really know why I chose him at that. I think it was the fact that I could remember it and it was top of mind at the time. And it gets stronger. My list gets stronger as you go up. But really, just the fact, I guess, that he was contributing to the what do I want to say? The reboot of Alien, because I think that was the first after the trilogy or the 90s movies. And so basically, new Aliens coming out, big Ridley Scott film, and okay, we got Idris Elba in it. Number 5.
I think I've seen this movie once with you and I fell asleep. So I didn't even remember he was in this movie. That's my fault.
The main thing, I think I remember that he just smokes a big cigar during the flying parts of the movie, and okay, yeah, cool, just black dude in space smoking a cigar. I respect it.
Yeah.
If not, and I'm fucking lying, then that was the energy he gave, and but yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Honorable mention here because this didn't make my list. Maybe it should have. But Idris Elba's been in a lot of fantasy sci-fi when I think about it. He's canceling the apocalypse in Pacific Rim.
Hey,
He's
Portal.
shit. Okay. But I was also going to talk about his. I can't remember. It's like Deadshot or something in the Suicide Squad, the most recent one, which is
Yep.
a really good movie, and he was really great in that role. And he's also Heimdall in the Thor movie. So Idris Elba, hold it down in the genres of fantasy and sci-fi. Okay, moving into my number 5 here. I am going with Storm from the X-Men and the wider sort of Marvel universe. Um, I'm more my definitive Storm character. It actually comes from the X-Men animated series. I think that character is just really just cool for, like, I don't know, the strangest reasons. Like, she's very like theatrical with her powers. She's always like tornado, do something, and it's like, I don't know, it's very unnecessary, but it's really cool because like they really commit to her being like a sorceress type of thing. And I was actually watching an episode the other night where there's a time travel element, and the X-Men, like her and Wolverine, it's one of like the split universe where the timeline gets messed up. They're actually married. And they go back in time to like the 1950s, and they're sitting in a bar with Cable and I can't remember, Cable's sister. And people in the bar start, they see Wolverine and Storm holding hands, and they start like causing a ruckus. Like, just, they're doing what in my bar? Like, I'm not allowing this. And so they start a fight with them, and they're the X-Men, so they kick their ass. And Storm says something along the lines of like, how petty, like it's almost quaint, like that you're judging me based off my skin color. And this was a TV series made in the 90s, and like you look where things are at now, it's like it was really cool to see that it's something in the 90s, but then to think about it in the context of today, it's like, not much has changed. So obviously changed from the 50s, but from the time of the making of that show, it's like, we were on such a good path in the 90s, and then it just fell off. Anyways, I'm rambling.
Yeah.
Storm.
No, the funny thing is, like, it's funny that they went down that path so early, especially when you hear like backlash when like you cast like a certain person out of race.
Yeah.
And like you cast, I don't know, whoever who's black as a typical white superhero. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my God, you did that. And like,
yeah,
it's funny because Wolverine's big, and like that 90s Wolverine has like a certain look, like the yellow, like the yellow suit, and like that time, like I'm surprised like they did that without like an uproar, or without maybe without the internet being what it is. But
it almost felt like, those pre-internet days, like you could just do things and people just had to fucking shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you cast Idris Elba as Superman, people would just have to accept it. There wasn't like an instant feedback to racist people online being able to be like, not my Superman. They could just be bitter in their basements. But I obviously there's good, bad, because when they cast Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, as whatever white actor, then then we could be like, hey, wait a sec, that's not cool. But I think like in the context of this 90s animated X-Men show, it was very much like there was writers who were like, what would that be like for Wolverine and Storm going back in time? And I thought it was really, like, it was very unexpected because it's a children's TV show, but I was like, that's cool that they put that in there. And Storm, just in general, in later Marvel works, the wife of T'Challa, this black power couple, literal power couple, this is really cool. And her story of like being like a street rat sort of thing, living, I think in, I want to say Cairo. I'm not too, but of like, strong black woman, part of the X-Men. Very cool. And that Mohawk look is just iconic. So my number 5 is Storm. What's your number 4?
Number 4. I feel like this is almost a nostalgia pick but it's Will Smith and I Am Legend.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
All my I've really kept it to like television and film because
Yeah,
I was
fair
trying
enough.
to think of live action, but no. The funny thing is I feel like I've only seen I Am Legend in full once, twice tops,
Mm-hmm.
and not recently. So it's like one of those films that I'm just hoping for nostalgia's sake was good. I remember it. I remember the parts of the movie that you're supposed to remember, and I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Will Smith did his thing, and then you know what, that works. If I can just keep I don't need to rewatch the movie because I remember it well enough now.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. I feel like I Am Legend is one of those like films I remember because I remember that being like Will Smith's absolute prime. Like like I don't remember obviously like that sort of storytelling, end of the world, man and his dog, is something that's been around for a long time. Last Man on Earth, Omega Man, all that type of stuff. I Am Legend is just sort of like a new reincarnation of those same films. I remember I think talking to like my uncle and him just being like enamored with Will Smith because he was like the best actor on the planet at that time, or at least viewed that way. He's sort of fallen off into being like, your uncle now, like just, oh man, Will Smith's doing something. He's, dancing on TikTok or whatever the case is, or he made a YouTube channel. But yeah, I remember this being like such an iconic role for him to take and such like a world breaking performance like that people were talking about. I remember just like the groundswell of response to this movie was like really big. And then seeing it, like the one scene that sticks in my head is, when he's going through that, like, I think it's like a convenience store or a movie store. And he's talking to like the cardboard cutouts. I was just
yeah.
That is acting, man. That is like, yeah. And the scene where he has the grenade and he like shoulder checks the.
Oh yeah, at the end.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking. I actually got to throw in an honorable mention. Will Smith and Hancock. Random ass movie.
Yeah.
Random ass movie that I just thought about as we were talking about this.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the rare black superhero movies where they can fight.
Yeah. Man, it's funny because I know a lot of people hate that movie. I know it's like critically panned and everything, but I remember seeing it as like a kid and thinking it was like an interesting concept.
Oh no, as a kid I was entertained and yo, that's the dude from Fresh Prince flying. Damn, we could all do it.
Yeah, awesome. That was your number 4. My number 4, I'm sticking with comic books for this next selection too. Miles Morales. Obviously, made popular by Into the Spider-Verse, sort of bringing that character to like a wider audience, which is good. But I first learned about Miles Morales actually through Donald Glover, who was like campaigning to play Miles Morales. So this was about, oh my gosh, I'm old, like 10, 15 years ago almost, I think. Maybe like 10 or 12 years ago. And so I remember like one of the first comic books I actually bought was the Ultimate Spider-Man, like the Ultimate Marvel Universe, but it was, following the death of Spider-Man and Miles Morales takes up the mantle. And at the beginning, he's still wearing the old Spider-Man suit, like the blue and red. And I think he fights Dr. Kangaroo or something, or there's some villain. And the villain's like, man, that suit's in poor taste. The guy just died. So he like makes his own costume and stuff. But obviously Into the Spider-Verse is sort of what has endeared me to the character and made it so that he's number 4 on my list. I think he's part Puerto Rican his father's black, but then he's part Latino. So I can't remember what the mix is there. But really cool character. Obviously, like from the opening scene where Sunflower's playing, just like immediately endears you to the character. You've seen Into the Spider-Verse, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen it, and
Okay.
it's definitely one of the best like Marvel projects, just because they mixed it up. They
Hmm.
mixed it up,
Yeah.
especially animation wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just for that alone too, like one of the pardon the pun, marvels of like animated comic book movies. Because a lot of them I feel like, like all those DC animated comic book movies are all very good, but they're sort of run of the mill, I guess you could say. Like they're all very well animated and all that, but this is like a totally different thing. The way they blend sort of comic book artistry into the film itself, with all the frame rate changes and all that stuff, is just incredible. So, yeah, that was my 4. What's your 3?
Okay, my 3. um, Somehow, it was the Portal one. It was Idris
Oh,
Elba in Pacific Rim.
wow. It just elbowed on your list
Um,
twice. Incredible.
yeah, no, because I was really trying to think of like live action. I don't know why, but I wanted to think of like people I could recognize their face on the screen and be
Actual
like,
black people. Yeah, that's fair.
yes, yes, black dude in space, like a real, like I don't know, but it was like in that film, that's more so just choosing a really good character in a really good film,
Hmm.
which is what you want to do, like kind
Yeah.
of. So like just the fact that Pacific Rim, like, I don't know if you ever watched the anime Evangelion
Oh,
or
yeah. I've seen a little
Neon
bit.
Genesis
I've never finished
Evangelion.
it. Yeah.
Um, Ending's the best part. Ending's the best part.
Yeah.
But
I watched that speech today, where canceling the apocalypse in preparation of this episode.
no, the fact is that like that anime and that film like have so many parallels
Hmm.
from like just like the mechs and those big monsters. Just seeing that at that scale, in actually a good film, like it was well done. It kept you entertained.
Very underrated. Yeah.
Like yeah, and it wasn't it's one of those films you can just like you can enjoy like on I don't know, you can throw it on a weekend and be
Yeah.
like, yo, good movie. And
Hmm.
then Idris Elba's like the strong, father figure protector role in that movie. He keeps
Yeah.
you grounded. He makes you understand the stakes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
He just gets it, and then he delivers that monologue at the end, and it's like, yo, yeah, I remember this. I'm gonna remember this in the theater. Good
Yeah.
job, man. Like, so yeah, just solid performance.
Yeah, no. It's like a subtle sort of contributing role almost. But it sort of steals the show. And because I feel like the two leads in that movie are like up until that movie, and Charlie Hunnam, I think, is the lead. I could be wrong on that, but Idris Elba definitely steals the show from both of
Yeah.
them, just in like the gravitas he brings, especially in that ending monologue.
He's that unifying factor
Yeah.
between those
Right.
two
Yeah.
leads.
Yeah. Okay. Moving into my number 3. This one will probably not be on your radar or your list. I'm going with Tao Salaren from the Rage of Dragons. This is from a book by Evan Winter, Rage of Dragons, the Burning series, the first book of which is The Rage of Dragons, followed by The Fires of Vengeance. This is a book me and Luca talk about ad nauseum on this podcast. Excuse me. But yeah, just a great overall character. The whole sort of world is like this sort of African inspired fantasy universe. So all the characters are dark skinned. And it's just he's just a really beautiful character that we follow, like from being in like an innocent, um, you know, ambitious kid who sort of put in this caste society, at one of the lowest rungs, and through tragedy is able to ascend in his path of vengeance, ascend himself to one of the highest honors, but is tormented literally by demons with his connection to like the underworld. It's a lot of very cool African lore reinterpreted. And this character is like a character like you can really get behind, but also to the credit of the writing, you ignore their shortcomings when you really shouldn't, because, to get the success he's getting, he's, causing irreversible damage on his psyche and all that good stuff. So one of my favorite characters of all time, and I had to put him on the list just for the Lords of Lore effect. So that's my number 3. So what's your 2?
Okay. No, I respect it because I know of it through Luca.
Yeah. Yeah. You should read it, man. You'd like it.
That's what he's saying. Okay, my number 2. Okay, I should have wrote it down because I just had it. Oh no, it is. I don't know if you even saw the series yet, but it's from HBO's Watchmen.
Oh no, I haven't.
Okay, this is kind of a spoiler.
It's okay,
but I'll keep it as general as I can. Basically, Dr. Manhattan ends up being a black man.
Nice.
For like not the entire series, because obviously,
yeah.
Well, actually, no, the series on HBO continues off from the graphic novel.
Okay.
So it's like in a world where the events of the graphic novel happen, like that fake, not nuclear threat, but alien threat,
right,
was like acted upon, and that made people calm down. And then Dr. Manhattan, did his thing and left. So it's in the shadow of Dr. Manhattan. You don't know where he is. And then you find out that he's he's been around. Like he was gone for a while, but he was back for a while.
Okay.
And
I thought this show was a prequel.
Yeah. No, it's a follow-up. It's
wow, okay. I have to watch this now.
Yeah, but no, it's an interesting idea. Like the idea of, because obviously Dr. Manhattan is he's like a blue man. He's transcended like what it means to be human at the point he becomes Dr. Manhattan. So the fact that he's living he's a blue man. He's not human anymore. He's he's basically a god. But that he's living the life or living as a black man, what that means with respect to him and his abilities and what his existential crisis, and in relation to the protagonist of the series, or the people around him. That main protagonist is a black character played by Regina King.
Right.
But yeah, just what it means for I don't know, emo existential Superman to be to be living, to be a black man and dealing with what that means in his existence. That's just very strange and interesting.
I think that's one of the things in why okay, so we talked about how it was difficult to find names for this list, but one of the mediums where that's not the case is comic book characters, because there's thousands of them, first of all. So just by ratio, there's a lot of black comic book characters, but black superheroes in general, I feel like the reason why black people, why we're so drawn to them is because there's a sense of escapism there beyond just escaping into a fantasy or sci-fi world. There's the escapism in that, what if you were a black person with these powers? What would that mean? What would that change for all black people? You know what I mean? And a lot of those stories, bring to light, what it's like to not only be a superpowered individual, but to be that on top of being black. And how does that change how you address things, or how you go about being that superpowered individual, which I think is like, in a very sad sort of existential way, is the black experience being like, that's what it would take in some cases to not deal with the things that black people have to deal with. So it's cool to see it from that perspective of like literally a god whose hands are kind of tied based off, wanting to stay anonymous type of thing. So yeah, I think like it's interesting that like this is the sort of medium that escapism comes for, people of color, and that like you have to imagine it because it's so tough to like manifest, I guess.
Yeah, but at the same time, and then it's funny how it can only be there's still only so many of those examples, because like comic books being like a specific pop culture medium, like that's one lane. But then once you get into like once you get into film, television, that's when like the numbers get low. Then you got to go back to literature of other forms to find more examples again.
Right. Yeah. And that was your number 2, right?
Yep.
Okay, so my number 2, coming from the world of Star Trek now, Lieutenant Nayartan Ahura. Just because, not just because, but because one of the like groundbreaking roles in sci-fi of all time, having a black woman as a sort of a regular in a sci-fi show. And, obviously like the creators of Star Trek wanted to show diversity, and this being like a far-flung future where, humans are no longer concerned with things like skin color. Like it's almost utopian in terms of what's going on Earth. But obviously she shares the first interracial kiss in television history. She's part of one of these moments that like, even when Star Trek was being made, like you'd think that wouldn't be such a big idea, like a big deal, but it's just unfortunate that like that's the reality of the situation. But it's also cool to look back at that and be like, to see like the strength Nichelle Nichols would have had to accept such a role like that, and realize that it will come with some backlash, but doing it anyways because it's the right thing to do. And it was something that progressed television and society in general, just because of how big that show was. I read something, I can't confirm whether this is true, obviously, but that there was a point in time where she wanted to leave the show, and Martin Luther King Jr. convinced her not to. There's a report of that. So, I mean, that's really cool. And then, obviously her original performance by Nichelle Nichols, but then also with my my fave, Zoe Seldotta, which just in the reboots of the original Star Trek, I think Zoe Saldana just kicks ass as Ahura. Just brings like that edge to the character. And Zoe Saldana is just a badass woman in general. So Ahura would be my second. Any thoughts on that?
No, that's a really good pick, because when you think about like the fact that she was a mainstay at a time where sci-fi was beginning to like get its legs, and
right.
like television and film, and like, yo, we needed someone, and like when you're the first, it's always harder,
right?
Like, and then considering the time in that context, to do that, to be in that role, and then to be iconic in the role, because almost like very much if you haven't seen the whole series, but you've been exposed to old Star Trek, or if you've seen the clips, like there are only certain people, despite it being so popular, that you're gonna remember and it's gonna be Captain Kirk, Spock, Uhura, and whatever weird, Klingon face,
Yeah.
whoever was yelling on the monitor in one of those movies. But like, but yeah, basically, yeah, to stand the test of time. Because even when Black Mirror redoes or does their own take on Star Trek, like they still need someone who can like try to bring that level or like that amount of like presence that like they're a part of this. They're a part of this and they're a meaningful part of this. And like they did it in Black Mirror. They brought like Michaela Cole, really, really good actor. But yeah, just to do it for so long, respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. So we'll move into now your number one.
This was the one, like by far the easiest choice, but probably a later thought, and it's Morpheus.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's the one, no pun intended. but he like, in terms of just being like an impactful, iconic, stylish, cool character that has a like just a brilliant performance. That's the one, because that stands up. Regardless of genre, regardless of, I don't know, regardless of creator or medium. I'm just thinking of the fact that I rewatched all of the Matrix films leading up to the Matrix Resurrections. I don't know about that. I don't know about the entire series. But what I can say is Morpheus, and especially in that first movie, was amazing. His first monologue to Neo, when like just from the start of it, where he's standing up and then he ends up in the chair presenting the pills. It's monstrous. Like it's Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction type shit. It's
Yeah.
Like,
you talk about presence with the horror, like, man, I love using this word. So the gravitas of Morpheus in that scene where it's like such a character. And I was reading something today, and someone was saying there's no one else you could cast besides Lawrence Fishburne that would have brought it that way. And it's such a great combination of character and actor. Just like the presence that Lawrence has is just so like, I'm here and there isn't shit you could do about it. Which I think, like, as a black man, like that is like the hardest thing, like not hard, like difficult, like hard, like beat your chest hard type of thing. Like just to have that presence and then being that character that's so jarring contextually in the film, and then just being there and being sort of like unabashed and unbothered by the insanity that's taking place around, I think is just super cool.
It's almost like, like Neo is cool, Trinity is cool, and them, like, their love story is like it's like an overarching like plot of the entire series that is incredibly important, but there's also that pillar of Morpheus
exactly,
that, like, they go back to. Even when Lawrence Fishburne isn't in the movies, they speak of Morpheus, or like a lot of the movie goes in like, or like happens in the shadow of, or in the legacy of Morpheus, and that's all because of that, like those early performances.
Yeah. I also loved Lawrence Fishburne coming back in John Wick in playing like a similar role to Morpheus, like the same sort of Neo Morpheus, John Wick. I can't remember the character's name. I thought that was really cool too. But yeah, great choice. My number one, I think this will come as no surprise. I am choosing T'Challa, the Black Panther, as my number one. Obviously, Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. Obviously, iconic performance in both Civil War, Infinity War, and Black Panther itself. Like, I remember, and I've talked about this, I think, in other parts of the podcast, but I remember being in the theater in Civil War and just being like a giddy 12-year-old kid again, seeing Black Panther on screen and just being like, that's my guy. I remember being like 16 after watching the Marvel Knights Black Panther series, which is still one of my favorite animated works of all time. That character is actually funny. He's played by Jimon Hansu, who plays a different character in the Marvel universe. He's one of the Kree, warriors. But he's not a Kree. He's some sort of hunter. Anyways, he's in there as well, but he plays T'Challa in the Marvel Knights animated series. And just like the score of that show, the story, the family sort of elements that go into it, I think is just beautiful. We even see Storm show up. Other Marvel characters are in there. Highly recommend. But I remember being like 16, and I think it was around the time that The Dark Knight Rises came out. And, people talking about like, oh, would Batman beat Superman? And I was like, I think Black Panther would beat them all. And they're like, who the hell is that? And having to explain like, he's sort of like Batman, but he's way cooler and he's black. And people just being like, okay, like that's really obscure. And then getting to that point in Civil War where it's like, oh man, like it's finally real for everyone, not just me and this Marvel Knight series I've been watching over and over. Like this is a real character now. Yeah, it's just iconic. I have a reprint of the first issues of Black Panther, which is really cool. Super awesome Jack Kirby art. Again, just iconic stuff. And the portrayal that Chadwick Boseman brings to it. And also, in that movie, getting another character like Killmonger, who is sort of what I was talking about before. And like, that escapism of young black people being like, what would I do if I had the power to change things? And Killmonger is such a great example of that. In a way that, it becomes very like nuanced and sort of like difficult to, determine who's right or wrong. It becomes a very shade of gray with when you're talking about like who's approaching things correctly. Is it T'Challa or is it Killmonger? And neither of them are wrong for wanting the things they want, but neither of them are going about it the right way. And the victor at the end, it's not really to say who was right or wrong and who deserved to win. It's just how it sort of played out. And that's how life goes sometimes. But I think for, being as big as that movie was and the eyes that were on it, I know for like me and a lot of people, it was sort of illustrated that beautiful dynamic between being very angry about the way things are for Black people and also seeing it in a way where it's like, you have to channel this anger into something that's productive and not just anger. Otherwise, you're just going to be angry and depressed, opposed to just oppressed and moving forward. And easier said than done, obviously. But yeah, for me, T'Challa, without a doubt, in my eyes, being the, when people always go Batman with preparation time beats any character, I feel that way in the Marvel Cinematic Universe about T'Challa. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
No, that's a really dope choice. And basically, no, I agree. Like when you really think about it, why Superman's god level, but like he's beating Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's got better tech. He's got better tech, and I believe he's a better fighter.
Man, one of the best moments in that Marvel Knights series is it takes place, I think, in the 60s or 70s. the US tried to invade Wakanda to get vibranium. And so they send in Captain America, and he gets his ass absolutely handed to him by, I think, T'Chaka's dad. So T'Challa's grandfather. And it's one of the best scenes because it's a great like hand-to-hand combat. And he sort of knocks him unconscious and he goes, we will watch your fledgling career with great interest because, we think in time you can be to America what the Black Panther represents to Wakanda. But right now I have to teach you a lesson, and whoops his fucking ass. And it's so great. It's like such a moment. And yeah, I agree. Like if Captain America, obviously there's other Marvel heroes like Sentry and all these super powered beings, but being the one-to-one that Superman and Captain America are in terms of iconography, I think the ability for Black Panther to whip Captain America's ass is one of those things I hold on to dearly.
Yeah, no doubt. And like as a character, that I guess like the fact that he's one of the rare characters that you see gets like a full arc, or like a full like he really goes through an emotional journey from point A to point B, and you actually like you're invested. And you're right, there's a lot of gray area in between it, because like outside perspective that's not entirely like disproved. Killmonger dies, but like at a certain point, T'Challa understands.
Right.
So like at a certain point, it's carried on a bit more. And like the fact that he's the type of character that can go through that type of change, like, and then, implement like what comes of it, that's big. And being cool while doing it doesn't hurt. Like,
all the while, yeah.
Like really, like yeah, and just being something like being a rallying point both in the film and culturally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like that point specifically, like when you talk about someone like Morpheus, which is an iconic character, like to be sure, period. But when you think about the how iconic Black Panther is in the way that it's something that everybody, whether you're just a Marvel fan or like when that movie came out, like my grandma saw it, like my mom saw it. She hasn't seen a single Marvel movie. It became something bigger than the universe it existed in for Black people. And just that, like, I know like my nephews have a superhero now on screen, animated in comic books, all mediums that superheroes come in, video games, whatever the case may be, even just merch that you can go to the store and just get a Black Panther shirt now is the fucking coolest thing. That like, that is something that like we have where we didn't before. Like, kids don't really look up to Blade. It's tougher that way. Like it's a tougher sell. So yeah, I think just for that reason alone, like it's just fucking awesome that we have a live action Black Panther. It's devastating that we've lost Chadwick Boseman. But I'm sure like that team and Ryan Coogler and everyone involved will do the best they can with what they have right now. And and hopefully some of the behind the scenes nonsense going on with I can't even remember the actress's name who plays Zuri. Hopefully we can get to the bottom of that and find the solution. Anyways, let's get to some honorable mentions, and then we'll combine our lists and make a definitive top 10. Do you have any off the top of your head? If not, I got a bit of a list here I can rattle off.
Yeah, the only one I can think of was Michael B. Jordan in Chronicle.
Oh yeah.
That was basically, North American teenager Akira. And
yeah.
Whenever a Black dude can fly in media, I fuck with it.
I'm there.
Like, so yeah, I don't know. It was like it's one of those underrated films and a solid performance. So I guess that's worth an honorable mention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame because it's funny. It is a really great performance and it is an underrated movie, but he is sort of like he just dies, being the stereotypical black guy that spiritual guide and then dies. And it's just like, okay, great. But yeah.
No, but they made him like the promising one.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Oh, he has powers. Oh, he can do shit with them.
Yeah.
And then he gets taken out early for being good.
Yeah. Yeah, what a great film. It's Dane DeHaan, and who's the other lead in that?
Yo, I cannot remember, but I just remember like they cast it well because the one lead, who ended up terrorizing the city. Yo, he looked like he was about to terrorize.
I think that's Dane DeHaan at least. Okay. Couple honorable mentions. I have Mace Windu, obviously from Star Wars. We get Samuel Jackson as a fucking Jedi with a purple lightsaber because he just wanted it, which then went on to create a bunch of lore around lightsaber colors. It's just one of the most badass things. He also it's more than it's
wait. I need to know what's the reason behind the purple lightsaber.
Literally, he was like, on set in episode 2.
No, in Star Wars lore, I need to.
Oh, literally, yeah. So in actual lore, like a purple lightsaber represents like a Jedi who taps into the dark side. So like a little bit gray area where like their anger and rage is something that they've honed and can harness without letting themselves into it. So it's someone who's sort of more aggressive, I guess you could say. Whereas like a blue lightsaber is someone who relies more on lightsabers to diffuse situations. So Anakin, Obi-Wan, and a green lightsaber is someone who relies on their force abilities to resolve situations. Yellow is for Jedi Temple Guards. White is a red. So red lightsabers are taken from, they used to be synthetic in the old canon, but in the new canon, they're red lights. They're normal lightsaber crystals that have been imbued with dark side force energy, and that turns them red. So it's called bleeding. You bleed, the crystal turns red, but you can also reverse that process, and they turn white. So if you recover a lightsaber from a Sith or Inquisitor or something like that, the most noted example would be like Ahsoka Tano has white lightsabers. Then there's like cyan. I can't remember what that reflects. There's I think orange is a color as well. But yeah, that all started, for the longest time there was only blue and green lightsabers because that's how the way it was in the original trilogy. But then Sam Jackson on set was like, hey, can you make my lightsaber purple? And George Lucas was like, I don't really know. And he just basically convinced him. It may have even been a thing where he said, I'll do it as long as my lightsaber can be purple. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, he got it because he wanted it, and he's Sam Jackson. And it looks awesome because then it became a way for them to, it might have even been that like he wanted to differentiate himself, because in that scene there's like a bunch of Jedi and he wanted to be like, oh shit, that's Sam Jackson right there, the one with the purple one. Yeah, just badass. But yeah, I was gonna say he does have like a lot of great lines, like the oppression of the Sith will never return. It's just like super intense, and like it's funny because like as much as Mace Windu just looks exactly like Sam Jackson, he totally gets lost in that character. Like for times, like I'll be watching Star Wars and I forget it's Sam Jackson because it's just Mace Windu to me. Like
that's amazing.
Yeah, he's so convincing, and he's so like I don't know, like he gives so much to that role. Like there's no winking to the camera type things. That, like I don't know, it's for me it's like one of those roles for him where like obviously it's just a Star Wars movie, so it might get overlooked to some of his like more iconic roles, but for me like he is acting his ass off in that. I'm never like, oh, Sam Jackson in the Star Wars. It's like damn, Mace Windu's fucking intense. Like, and maybe it's just because he's not saying motherfucker every 10 seconds, but yeah. Lando from Star Wars as well. Obviously, Billy D. Williams, iconic in general, but then also an iconic character. Lower on my list because Mace Windu, stuck to his guns the whole time, and Lando was a traitor. So, but suave, cool guy. Cyborg from Teen Titans, the animated series, more specifically. Even in the Justice League movie, the Snyder Cut, so fucking good. But that original sort of Teen Titans version, the Booyah, that's my Cyborg. I think that's Kari Payton, voice actor, who's just become an iconic person. If you don't know, he's the guy with the tiger in Walking Dead. He's the guy who voices Cyborg. Aqualad from Young Justice, another great comic book character. Afro Samurai, a great anime character. Another Sam Jackson character. Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, Spawn, Blade, Static Shock. I didn't have that channel. I didn't get Cartoon Network when I was a kid. We only had YTV, so I never got into Static Shock, but I know for a lot of people our age, Static Shock was a big inspiration. And Barbados Slim from from Futurama. Yeah, okay. Any others for you, or are you ready to combine the list?
No, I was gonna say Static Shock, cool. Best honorable mention though would be Jon Stewart. Like Lantern.
Yeah, very cool. And I didn't know a lot about comics when I was watching that show, and I remember when they announced the Green Lantern movie and it was Ryan Reynolds, I was like, yo, what the fuck? They made Green Lantern a white guy. Like, I didn't know there was other human Green Lanterns.
Yo, you made me think about that, because when Green Lantern was cast, I didn't think anything of it. But then, like, now looking back on that was the chance. We didn't need Cyborg 5 years later, but damn, we could have been there.
Yeah. And I know. I understand why, because like I think in the comics, the continuity is it goes from Hal Jordan to Jon Stewart, then Guy Gardner and some other person I can't remember right now. But yeah, I guess he's like the second human to get one, but I don't know. Him in the Justice League animated series was huge for me. He was just so cool. The Green Lantern powers are just really cool. And I remember there is a scene in that where they travel back into like a different dimension where there's a different version of the Justice League. So like the original Flash, and there's another version of Green Lantern. And he has a weakness to wood or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's before they really honed in on the idea. But I think it's the Flash or the other Green Lantern says to him, like, you're a testament to your people. And Jon Stewart goes, what do you mean by that? And then the scene sort of just switches. But like, I thought it was cool that they at least threw that in there and like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, Jon Stewart's a real one.
No, respect.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get to combining. So we'll start with the number one spot. So I'm going to argue for T'Challa being the number one. You had Morpheus in your spot. Do you feel as though Morpheus could supplant T'Challa in your mind? And if so, let's hear why.
I think he has to. I think I have to stick with Morpheus, but only in the grand scheme of the movies, like my line of movies, and especially sci-fi movies. That first Matrix, like, that is a great film, great questions. And he is probably he's the best actor in it. He has the best acting performance in that movie by far. And
wow.
And when you think about the fact that like his monologue is, again, it's Pulp Fiction Sam Jackson level, like just like iconic, amazing level. And like I remembered while we were talking about him or like that pick, like the first time you hear Morpheus, it's his voice, and even like with Neo trying to escape in his office or like that cubicle setting, and it's like even that is iconic. It's like he delivers from the first time you hear his voice. It's like you're not gonna get a better performance
Okay.
than what he
So
gave.
you're selling me on
And
the
that's
idea of having Morpheus first, but I just have to ask, do you feel as though the iconography of T'Challa culturally, as well as within the context of like the film universe, do you feel like as though that Morpheus performance outweighs those cultural significances?
it it really depends on what like the I feel like it's almost like it depends on what your criteria is. It really does.
The criteria
Like
is best.
Yeah, but what does best mean? Best performance, or like who's top dog, or like most
Yeah.
like I like or like the biggest. Like
Yeah, because I agree
like
with you that Morpheus is a more iconic performance, but I don't agree that he's a more iconic character. I think that's where my distinction lies.
no, and that's no, you're not wrong because like the Matrix is almost it's gonna become generational because Resurrections did not hit. So like it's gonna become one of those things where like a very specific age group is really gonna like it. And then if
Yeah.
you show it to the youth, yeah, that's how they're gonna adopt it. But
Yeah.
the thing is, Black Panther hit everyone and they loved it from the get-go. Like the grandmas loved it when they saw like, the seniors,
Mhm.
all the adults, all the kids loved it. And like it's not something you don't have to put anyone on to Black Panther. They just know. Like
Well said.
like Morpheus, once you see it, you know it. But like, it's just like
Yeah.
it's two different situations.
I also feel in that like if I tell somebody to watch Captain America Civil War, then it's like, oh, you love that, hey? Well, here's a whole movie, and then here's some other movies where that feature this character. Whereas if I tell somebody to watch The Matrix, it's like they're like, I love Morpheus. Is there more? And you're like, yeah, but it's I don't know. I don't know if you want to see it. It might ruin your interpretation of what you just saw. Maybe not the performance, but the film sort of story and world. Um, but okay, so based off this conversation, would you be okay putting T'Challa number 1 and Morpheus number 2 on our top 10 list?
I think that'd be fair.
Okay.
I think that'd be fair.
Cool. Let me
Because
write this down as we go.
it even works in the sense that like you gotta peek back a little bit to find Morpheus. You gotta peek back a little bit to get into the Matrix or get out of the Matrix.
I love that. Okay, so T'Challa followed by Morpheus. Do you have a number 3 that you think or somewhere on your list that you think deserves to be number 3? My next highest was Ahura.
No, I can move down.
And what was your number 2?
Mine was Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan
from Watchman.
Okay. Yeah. Let's put Dr. Manhattan 4. Then my number 3 was Tao Salaren. Do you have something you think deserves to be in the 5th spot more than that? And I'm willing to take an argument on here because it's a lesser known character.
It really depends because I'm gonna like my top 2 are the ones I felt the best about. Then you got Idris Elba in Pacific Rim, and like one thing I remembered about it was that the Pacific Rim sequel lives in the shadow of Idris Elba.
Yes, that's
Like,
very true.
and basically the grounding thing of the film, or like grounding force, is the fact that Idris Elba, his character, was in the original.
Right.
So yeah. But I wouldn't like have to. I wouldn't go to war for that.
Okay. You wouldn't go. Okay, so I'm willing to put Idris Elba's character. What's the character's name? I'll figure it out. Idris Elba in Pacific Rim as our number 5 spot. Stacker Pentecost. What a fucking name. Yeah, let's go in there. Holy fuck, that's awesome. Oh, you forget a name like that. That's sick. And then I would let's see here. Yeah, then I would vouch. I'm willing to let Tao slip further to the bottom of the list because I think some of these other characters might be more iconic. So I would then say I think maybe Miles Morales should be next. Or do you feel like Stacker Pentecost goes above Miles Morales?
No, I feel like you could put Miles Morales there, especially because, like, I don't know, there's that new Spider-Man game. I feel like people love that. Like the fact that like there's definitely going to be more Miles Morales.
Yeah.
So this might be projecting.
Okay. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Moving on to our 7th spot. I still have Storm and Tao who haven't made the list. You have Dr. Manhattan, Stacker Pentecost, and Morpheus. So who are your other 2 who haven't made the list?
Will Smith in I Am Legend and Idris Elba in Prometheus.
Okay, so I would say I think maybe Storm next. Just I think because like we've said for some of these other choices, there's more Storm to dive into, whereas those characters are sort of one-offs. So I would vouch for Storm taking the 7th spot just because there's more and there's different like we have the Halle Berry Storm and we have I can't remember the younger actress's Storm. But yeah, so I would say Storm next. Do you feel like any of your choices would outrank Storm?
No, I can live with that pick. Because also I feel like I can admire the Storm performance from Halle Berry through the same type of nostalgia filter as I Am Legend.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where like, yeah, you're like so many years removed. Where like, okay, she looks cool in that movie. Okay,
yeah.
It must have been good.
It was also really cool to see her come back in Days of Future Past, like all those years later. It still looked just as cool. That's really sweet. Okay, so we have Storm in the 7th spot. Then you know what? I'm okay to let Tao go 10. So I'll put Tao in the 10th spot. So now I guess it's just between you. We could go the way you have it in your list, or what do you think? So we have Idris Elba's character in Prometheus, and who was the Will Smith in I Am Legend. So would you rank them the way you did on your list, or do you feel like they would switch here?
No, I'd keep them the way they are, just because I Am Legend is going to be more iconic.
Yeah. I think I think watching,
and it's a better role. Like it's just a bigger role with more depth. You know, you got to deal with the dog drama. Like
yeah, the dog drama. And that's Yannick from Prometheus. So Will Smith, I Am Legend, and Captain Yannick. Okay, so we have our combined list here. So I'll read from the bottom up. And then that'll be it for us. So in our number 10 spot, we have Tao Salaren from the Burning series. In our number 9, we have Robert Neville from I Am Legend. Number 8, Captain Yannick from Prometheus. In the number 7, in our number 7, we have Storm. Sorry, that's the wrong way, right? Captain Yannick was number 9.
Yeah, he was lower than
Right. Neville. Okay, so Tao Salaren, Captain Yannick, Robert Neville. In their 7th spot, we have Storm, whose name is Aurora, I think. That's cool. I could be wrong. Stacker Pentecost takes the number 6 spot from Pacific Rim. In our number 5 spot, we have Miles Morales. The number 4 spot goes to Dr. Manhattan, followed by Lieutenant Ahura in the number 3 spot. In our number 2 spot, Morpheus from The Matrix. And our number 1, T'Challa, the Black Panther. That is our definitive top Black characters, fantasy and sci-fi or otherwise. I think, the main point, I guess, for this show is obviously to celebrate Black characters, Black actors, Black creators, directors, all of that stuff. But also to highlight that there's not enough. We need more, even with our honorable mentions, even with the wide list of Black comic book characters. Comic books aren't a medium that appeal to everybody, like you say, Ochi. So it's important that we get more and more on-screen representations of Black people in written word, in novels, in fantasy settings, in sci-fi settings, the whole gambit of things. So I think that's important. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that was well said. The only thing I would add is that, when they're good, they're timeless. Because when you think of that top 3, like as far as longevity, staying power, cultural impact, and then bottom line, the performances, when people knock it out of the park, when you give an opportunity and they perform to that level, it is worth it. And it opens the door to new stories, which is like, if anything, the best thing. New stories, new opportunities for people, and isn't that what you want to see? Yeah,
and especially when we talk about this episode of the show in the context of Black History Month, right? Like you'll see it every year, and it's not Black Trauma Month. It's Black History. We want to celebrate things, not just acknowledge that things have been tough historically for Black people. And I think in that same vein, like a lot of on-screen representations we get of Black people are, we're only nominated for Oscars when it's like a slave movie, or we're only getting, sort of gang violence movies and stuff like that. Those are the iconic Black roles you think of. And I think that's not the way it needs to be, especially anymore. And especially in today's time, we can tell our stories in a way that doesn't, go into stereotypical behaviors and really highlights the Black experience. And I think that's something that can be universal, whether we're talking about a sci-fi project, a fantasy project, or even especially comic books that sort of take place in a hypothetical real world situation where, things are the same up until the time that said person gets superpowers. I think those are really important stories to tell, and tell in a way that sort of respects the experience and doesn't just, here's Black trauma for a white audience. And like you say, like it works. Something like Black Panther, one of the most successful films of all time. I think it was at least in the top 25, I believe, highest grossing film of all time. I think it made $2 billion worldwide. These films can be successful. You just have to put the energy that you're putting into other things you would market into these films. You have to give Black actors and Black creators a chance. That's happening more now. It needs to happen even more than it is. These are our list of favorite characters. Ochi, thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to add? And if not, where can people find you online if they want to talk some more?
No, that was all I had. No, it was really fun. I guess. But no, aside from that, you can find me on Instagram, just my name, Ochiolo. And No, really good time. It was a fun, hard topic to think about,
Yeah.
but but once you get to like the major performances, um, it just highlights like, yo, like really good talent, like
Yeah.
some different eras of like of pop culture in the medium, and just the fact that like there could be more. There could be more if like if you find that next story and you find that next person who can deliver it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to a point where on the Lords of Lore podcast, we can do a super obscure and hyper fixated top black superheroes with this type of power. I want there to be so many black characters that we can get hyper focused, and it's not just a general black characters in genre films. Because like, is it like it was hard to sort of compile a list that felt true to myself and not just like what are the popular picks, like what are my favorites. And then when you get to a point where you're struggling to make a top 10, you're like, oh, here's a problem. So I want just more. And like you say, I want more storytelling that, tells these stories better. But thank you again for coming on the show. We look forward to seeing you again. For everybody watching, you can find our main show every Tuesday and something coming soon. Looking out for that coming on a Friday in the future. We'll have to see. Yeah. Thanks so much. As always, I'm Matt. This is Ochi, and we are the Lords of Lore.
Take care.